Hello everybody, welcome back to For His Namesake. We are always glad to see you, or to have you here. This Valentine, my daughter, and I'm Martina, for those of you joining us for the first time. Welcome everyone. A couple of days ago, or I don't know when it was, but we had a video, and someone in the comments was, and don't worry, we're not talking bad about them or anything, and we had to kind of remove them from the channel because it was getting out of hand. But and I don't know that they are an actual subscriber or regular viewer, and that's usually the case with people like this. But I guess the topic is, are there modern day Pharisees? That would be the topic for today. Obviously not biblical Pharisees, because those were in the Bible times, but kind of the same mindset or attitude or characteristics of a Pharisee. And Valentine's going to share in a minute what a Pharisee actually is. But basically, this comment kind of triggered, or inspired me rather, to have this discussion today on people that are just, all they're doing is waiting for you to make a mistake. That's all they're doing. They're watching every little move that you're making or that we're making, and or they see it as wrong anyway, and that's all they're going to do. And they're quick to say, I'm not judging you, but then there's the but, and then they add the rest, and it's one complaint after another. And then when you reply back to them and explain to them your explanation of things, they are not happy with that answer. They're still extremely either judgmental. I've heard of people saying they could be self-righteous. I mean, there's different things that people would see them as. So Valentine, how about you share what a Pharisee is? Because I didn't even know, but I saw them back in the Bible days as people who were just out to just wait for something bad to happen, or accuse Jesus or his disciples of doing something wrong according to their law.
Well, I got my answers from gotquestions.org. That's a Christian website, and I really like what they have to say. And it says the Pharisees were an influential sect within Judaism in the time of Christ and the early church even. They were known for their emphasis on personal piety. In fact, the word Pharisee comes from the Hebrew word, which means separated. So they thought themselves, goody two-shoes and all that. We're higher than you guys are. They were known for their acceptance of oral tradition, in addition to the written law, and they're teaching that all Jews should observe all 600 plus laws in the Torah, including the rituals of ceremonial purification. They were mostly middle class businessmen and leaders of the synagogues. So that's what they were. And then not only were Pharisees and spoken of in the Bible, but scribes as well were also talking against Jesus. And scribes were learned men whose business was to study the law, transcribe it, and write commentaries on it. They were well respected, they taught the people, and they interpreted the law for them. And just like the Pharisees, they also added man-made traditions to what God said.
I learned so much in less than 5 minutes.
And another thing that the Bible mentioned was Pharisees, scribes, and also chief priests. Now, depending on translation, it might also say high priest. That kind of went hand in hand. But yeah, and they were up there as well, part of the Levite tribe. You could do your own research on that. But all these people that I mentioned, all these groups, they were all very well respected. People looked up to these people. People listened to what they had to say. Which, it was kind of like a tug of war between what Jesus had to say too.
Right. Which brings me to, here's an example number one, where this is now the scribes questioning Jesus in the book of Mark, chapter 2, verse 7. The scribes question as to why Jesus has the authority to forgive sins. And they asked, who can forgive sins but God alone? Oh, of course, they didn't know that Jesus was God or is God. But, I mean, he was forgiving sins, and that's what they were questioning. And another example would be in Mark, the same chapter in Mark, but a few verses down in 16, the scribes and Pharisees saw Jesus eating with the tax collectors and the sinners. And they said to the disciples, "How is it that he," as in referring to Jesus, "eats and drinks with the collectors, the tax collectors and the sinners?" So to me, it seems like they're very judgmental. Now, we did have a video on judge not, and so like you'll see a lot of our videos, they will overlap with each other, and some of our Bible verses will be shared again, and or even concepts and subject matters. But this one is more of just, we've had over the let's see, is it a year and a half that we've been homeless? We've had, especially when we have the title in our video has the word homeless in it, that draws a lot of attention, not just from our regular viewers, but from people that have never been to the channel before. The word homeless kind of triggers like, woo, I need to check this out. And then they say a one-time comment, and that one-time comment is not always nice. In fact, a lot of times it's quite hurtful. And they're very much in our face, so to speak, and they love to tell their opinion, and they'll be quick to say, "I'm not judging you," and then the next sentence over is, "but," or, "I have this and this to say, and you're doing this wrong, and you should have done this, and why are you doing it that way?" And then when we try to explain to them in the comments and in the replies, oftentimes I think to myself, are they even getting our replies? Since YouTube doesn't really give notifications, that's what I'm told, not too much anymore. But yes, they are getting them. Not only that, but then they come back and write even more and say, "I don't agree with your answer. You must be lying. You can't possibly be telling me the truth." And so then you wonder, is it a troll? But no, it seems like it's a real person. When we go to click on their name, so to speak, they have a channel, but it'll say something like no content. But just quick to judge us. And I like what Valentine shared with me the other day. She said every homeless story is a different story. Every homeless family has a different story, and that's true. Right. We're not like any other homeless family in this city. For example, a lot of homeless families here are actually single. They're singles. We've never actually seen a family, except for in the beginning. We did see a family. We haven't seen them anymore. I hope that they've moved on and hopefully have, gotten themselves an apartment or a home or something, or moved in with family. But we're the actually only family that I know of. Most of them are single men in the maybe 60s, maybe single men, and they're truly living. They're truly homeless. They're on the ground, sleeping on the grass somewhere, on the concrete. We have a truck. We have a roof over our heads. It may not be the traditional roof over our heads like a house, but I still consider ourselves to be very blessed compared to those other homeless people who are just, like we said, they're just walking around. They do a lot of walking. No wonder they're skinny, and plus they don't get to eat much. But, so, yeah. I forgot where I was going with that. I kind of went off on a rabbit trail. Sorry.
Just that, I don't like how random people can give their opinion when they really don't know us.
Yeah.
You don't know us. Even some of our most loved subscribers who have been with us a long time, there are some things about our situation that we don't tell you all, because there is such a thing as a privacy, We can't share everything, just like we have not shared what city we live in.
Right.
Believe me, I would love to. One day, Lord willing, if I ever get out of here, I'll tell you, and you can stay far away from this place.
Yes.
But people think they can tell us this and that, and they've even gone so far as to say it's your own fault that you're homeless. Those are the comments that really get to me, and it's really hurtful that a Christian, so-called Christian, would say such a thing.
Yes. Well, we don't know if they're Christian. We hope that they're Christian, but still, even so, yes. And we were, a friend of ours had said, based on our recent video on the pros and cons of having an online ministry, they had mentioned another con would be lack of privacy. And I thought, what do they mean by that? But then they went in and told us in detail, basically, it's someone's always going to basically kind of step into our, I don't know what you call it, into our space and say, you're doing this all wrong. The way you're living is wrong. That's not the kind of homelessness I know. You must not be truly homeless. And, you know, because you're overweight, therefore you're not truly homeless. Homeless people are supposed to be, you know, skin and bones, so to speak. The fact that you're eating at a fast food restaurant every day, you're not truly poor. Where's the money coming from? I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, we've had, you know, a mile-long questions, like 20 questions, and I can't believe that I actually took the time out and answered every single one of those questions just recently. And I thought today, I'm not going to do that. The next time that happens, I'm going to say, welcome to the channel, because it's a new person. We never had them there before. That was their first comment, or they wrote 2 comments, which was both in that particular video, which was the case with this recent one. And I'm just going to say, why don't you check out some of our older videos, and then I'll give them the link to that. Check out these older videos, listen to the whole thing all the way through, and that will tell you why we came to the position that we're in right now. There's a lot of people that will come on and say, like Valentine said, this is your fault that you're homeless. You can do something about it. You can get government aid. The list goes on. And all of those videos, if people will actually listen to the thing from front to back, don't just skip around and don't just look at the description box of what my husband's written. There's more to the story than just that. He's just giving a kind of a summary, if you will. I guess that's what it is. Or just kind of, you know, let you know a little bit about it. But please, that's what we request, is that everybody listens to the whole video from front to back. And before you cast stones, for those of you who are, you know, just passing through and you're quick to judge, because that's what people are doing. They're judging. And I've been there myself before I became homeless. And so sometimes I feel like maybe I'm homeless because God is trying to teach me a lesson of what not to do. So, you know, I can actually say that I have been judgmental of homeless people before I became homeless. I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to get close to them. They're probably dirty. They probably never take a shower. But that's not true. We just saw a homeless person today, and she was going to the facility that we go to take showers. So I thought, hey, you know, there's other homeless people out there who are actually taking showers. So I guess it's stereotypes. We did a stereotype video too before, that all homeless people are dirty. I think we mentioned that one. If we didn't, we should have, because that's a mindset that people have, that homeless people are filthy and never take showers. But that's not true. So, yeah, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, sadly, even though we do mention, please watch the other videos. Oh no, it's turning red.
Oh goodness,
it's flashing.
Okay,
well, we're going to just in a minute. Yes. We didn't quite say all we need to say, so hang tight till part 2.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're not sure where we left off, but we're talking about modern day Pharisees, so to speak, and comparing them to the Old Testament. I'm sorry, not the Old Testament, the Bible. Sorry. And I shared a couple of scripture references where the Pharisees and or scribes were questioning Jesus, questioning the disciples, why Jesus was doing certain things or activities on certain days, or just in general. And then Valentine, she's found some too, from probably the Gospels as well. Isn't that what you said? Basically the Gospels, that's where the Pharisees are.
Yes, that
mainly.
is.
Okay.
There's Matthew 15, 1 through 2. Then the scribes and Pharisees who were from Jerusalem came to Jesus, saying, why do your disciples transgress their tradition of the elders, but they do not wash their hands and eat bread? I like Jesus' answer. He answered and said to them, why do you also transgress the commandment of God because of your tradition?
Okay.
So that's kind of a funny one. Mm-hmm. There's lots of references. I found several in Matthew. There was another part in Matthew 19 verse 3 when they're testing him about the subject of divorce and what Jesus is going to say. They like to ask him questions. There was another one. There's many different confrontations. I don't know which one to put because there's just so many.
Right, yes.
So.
And then we were going to, before we conclude this talk, we were going to share some Bible verses on how we as Christians are supposed to be towards each other. So, especially on channels when we're making comments to people, especially if we're just happen to be kind of visiting someone's channel, we really don't know much about them at all. We really didn't take the opportunity to go through any of the other videos to see why they are living. Like, let's say, for example, if there's someone else that's homeless that you came across, or that we came across, it's very easy to judge someone. I've been there myself, like I mentioned earlier, but we should always listen to the entire story. Listen, watch videos, go back to the past and see why they are the way they are, or whatever part of their life they're in. We're not just talking about homelessness. It just happens to be that we're homeless, and there seems to be a lot of people basically telling us what we should, how we should think, breathe, and do, basically. And most of these are people that are just passing through. Most of those are. You regular ones, you're very sweet and give us sweet compliments and things, and encouraging words. But we do get it's funny that it was not funny, but it's kind of sad, really, that the kind of the negative comments seem to kind of, those are the ones we seem to kind of stress over or get discouraged by. So anyway, but here is a Bible verse of how we Christians should be with each other, because we're assuming that some of these people that are giving us suggestions or giving an opinion we would assume that they're Christians. Otherwise it'd be kind of a wasteful time for them to even talk about us, I would think, if they're not Christians. But anyway, here's one from Ephesians. I kind of wrote this down, chapter 4, verses 1 and 3. This is Paul speaking, right? He's talking in Ephesians. Yeah. I, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long-suffering, bearing with one another in love, I can't even read my writing. Endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. So I'm thinking mostly unity with the Spirit in bond of peace. Keep things peaceful, with each other.
And to go along with that, he also says in the same chapter, verse 29, and I've said this several times in the channel, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. Right. We've all forgotten grace. Don't be so quick to judge and think that you know the other person's situation. I'm speaking for myself too, when you really don't. You really can't know what it's like in a situation. I mean, you can imagine, that saying where they say walk in another person's shoes. Even then, you can only go to a certain amount, because it still won't be your life. It's not the same thing as that person's life.
Right. Exactly.
And I know we're going to get some comments. I've already thought about this.
The comments disclaimer.
We're going to get comments to say, you're just too sensitive. Or, you read that wrong. That person didn't mean it that way. That person didn't mean it in that tone. They were being really genuine and caring.
We've had that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's caring, and then there's mixed in with judging. To me, if you're judging, that's not really caring.
Right.
Plus, I do think that the rude comments, if they really were truly genuine, and I'm saying this as a plea, please send it through an email instead.
Right.
I don't like back and forth in the comment section. It just gets really ugly. It's bad enough that we have to go through an email, but at least no one else has to read them except our family and the commenter.
Yeah.
It's for your sake too.
That's right. Yeah. Then we end up having to delete comments, and then you know how it is. If you delete one comment from that person, then it deletes the entire conversation that's gone back and forth, even if maybe one person had something edifying to say. Well, there goes that. It's gone. The whole thing is gone. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the sad thing too. But it just gets to the point where they're just back and forth, and I mean, this last one we got was very discouraging. I mean, it almost brought tears to my eyes.
I was shaking.
It was awful. I mean, we explained the 20. They had 20 questions basically. Why are you this way? Why are you homeless? Can't someone get a job? Why isn't this man working? Why? What? And then they said, I don't mean to judge. I'm not judging you. ... And then they went into, however, ... And then we answered all the 20 questions, or Valentine answered hers, and then I answered mine, and I said, this is to answer your questions in the following order, and we answered it, and I was very kind of like, I think I answered that pretty well, and I, handled it pretty well, and I asked God to help me write it in the first place. I don't just plunge in there. At first I'm thinking like, oh, I can't wait to write back to this person, but no, the best thing is to pray ahead of time, or take a, kind of step aside a little bit, kind of calm down a little bit, come back, and then, so I did do that. But then later I thought, why did I answer all the 20 questions for her? Because then she replied back, and it was ugly. Valentine told me about it. It was ugly. It was awful. So we had to just delete her comments, period, and block her from the channel. That's how bad it got. And we don't like to do that. I mean, we are a ministry. We're trying to reach out to people, but when it gets really ugly like that, no thanks. So as Christians, if we're Christians, we need to be nice and loving to each other based on these scriptures that we've shared.
Right.
And if we're not Christian and we're just kind of walking through, wow, I don't know what to say to that person, because we would hope that we're sending a good message.
And if you guys think that we're being mean to the so-called Pharisees, just remember, Jesus was pretty tough on the Pharisees himself, and he is God. Yes,
Right.
He has the authority, but remember, we also have some authority because Jesus Christ lives within us. His Holy Spirit lives within us, and we do have the authority to say, you can't speak to us that way, you can't say things like that.
Right.
It's okay to say that.
Yeah. There we go. And on that note, we hope that you found this discussion to be, if it wasn't edifying, then we hope at least it was interesting. And maybe you have been in that kind of a situation before. Maybe you have a channel too, and you've had some rude comments where people have told you how to think, breathe, and do, so to speak. It'd be interesting if you'd like to share, how did you handle that? Or just everyday life. Maybe you don't have to have a channel. Maybe everyday life you have had to deal with a kind of like a Pharisee type of attitude. I'm more righteous than you are, basically. And there's even that part where, is it one of the Pharisees that says, I'm glad I'm not like that person over there. And so they can be very, I guess the word is pompous, or, I'm greater than you are, so to speak, kind of attitude, basically. So, and then give you suggestions, like their suggestions are better than what your suggestions are, so to speak. But if you would like to share, you can. And if you don't want to put in the comments, you can always send us an email, like Valentine says. But of course, we like the comments. And again, please keep them nice. Okay. Well, Valentine's famous last words.
Please like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and if you feel led to do so, you're more than welcome to join our membership. It's $4.99 a month. I don't know why YouTube is saying it's more than that. It's not. I'm sorry that they're saying it's $6.99. It's not $6.99. It's $4.99. Okay. And yeah. And Lord willing, we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.